Okay, you guys have asked me to do this. The Mastermind students have been asking me to show this for quite some time, so I'm going to show it now. This is my standard development stack being deployed via Portainer. Take 0. All right, so a huge thank you to Portainer, Neil Cresswell, who's the CEO there, for sponsoring the community this month. So first and foremost, let me say thank you to Neil and for the folks at Portainer for being our sponsor this month. We spend a lot of money creating this educational content. We basically operate at a break-even model, and the sponsorships they make all the difference in the world for us to be able to bring you guys content like this. So please support our sponsors. A quick thing on the sponsorship thing. We only allow companies to sponsor us whose products we actually use and we actually believe in. So Portainer happens to be one of those products, and I'm going to show you how I deploy my development stack using Portainer now. But first and foremost, let's go ahead. What is Portainer? There's a couple things that we need to establish here. So there's a couple of important things. All right, so you have market perception and you have reality, okay? So the market perception of Portainer is that it is a Docker management utility. It's like a Docker GUI that open source that you can download for free, and you can manage your Docker environment. You can manage Kubernetes, Docker Swarm, etc. All right. What's the reality? Okay. Well, the reality is that is barely the tip of the iceberg of what Portainer actually is. Portainer is actually an enterprise class infrastructure management tool. That's really what it is. Okay. And it's designed for industry. Volkswagen has used Portainer to manage their infrastructure for quite some time. Okay. If you were at Prove It this year, you got a chance to see how I think they were on oil and gas rigs, offshore rigs, using Portainer to manage the software that's running on various edge devices out in the middle of nowhere. Okay. But what you really need to know is that what I use Portainer for is for managing my application stacks and managing infrastructure, and then being able to scale those stacks across infrastructure, both vertically and horizontally. Okay. You can go to Portainer.io and you can take a look at their brand new website. They've completely rebranded. They have been hyper-focused on shifting towards industry and really talking to the market about what it is they provide for industry. For those of you who don't use Portainer, have never used it ever before, okay, it's very simple, and I'm going to walk all the way through. I have a brand new server running that doesn't even have Docker running on it yet, okay? I'm going to show you exactly how I deploy from a brand new server that's been spun up, okay, using a common stack that I use all the time. The only thing I've done for this implementation is I have created a different environment variable file that has passwords that I don't actually use, okay? All right, so first and foremost, let me show you my existing Portainer installation. So I'm actually using Portainer Business Edition. So you can basically upgrade the Community Edition to Business Edition with a business license. Okay, so right now I have 2 instances of Portainer running, Portainer server. So here in my lab, this is the Portainer that's running the lab. So I have a Raspberry Pi 4, an Orange Pi 5, a ThinkPad Ubuntu server, Pi 5 2, Pi 5 1, Skywalker, and Optiplex. All of those are different devices that are all being managed by Portainer. All of the software running on those devices is being managed by Portainer. So you'll notice on the ThinkPad Ubuntu server, we have Glances and Node-RED running there. Node-RED is actually running all the data operations inside this lab, okay? In addition, we have the Prove It infrastructure, okay? And this is actually the one we're going to be working with today, all right? So we've got Death Star, Prove It HiveMQ1, Prove It HiveMQ2, Prove It MySQL, and Prove It OPC server, okay? And we're going to add on to that infrastructure here, all right? So if you look here, what do we got? We've got a server rack sitting in our office where Death Star is running. We have Portainer running as standalone here, okay? And from my web browser, I hit that Portainer. Okay, so when I'm looking at the prove it Portainer, I'm actually hitting this web server. Okay, then Portainer is deployed on all of these other hosts. Okay, and then they're added to the as an environment. Okay, so they're added as an environment, and so when I hit this service, I can see this host node, this node, this node, this node, this node, and what we're going to do is we're going to add another node right now, and I'm going to deploy my stack, and we're calling this Portainer stack. Okay, so this is what we're going to deploy. All right, so what we've got is, we'll go back here. All right, we're going to be adding an environment here. All right, so first things first, we're looking at my Portainer stack here. All right, and what I'm going to do is walk you through how I do an implementation. So first and foremost, it's fast up there, so we'll go ahead and we've got to do a quick update, and then we've got to do an internal upgrade of the server. Okay, so while that server is that upgrade is happening, I'm going to tell you why it is I even started working with Portainer. When I started working with Docker a few years ago, as much as I love command line, I really don't want to invest the brain power in remembering all my commands. Okay, and one of the things that I hate about command line is that if I don't remember a command, it is easy for me to forget an argument I've got to pass into spinning up a container. It's also difficult for me to remember all of the containers I have running across many hosts, okay? And so obviously I was looking for a GUI that was going to allow me to look at all of the devices that I have running, all the ones that have Docker running on them, and then all the containers that are running in each of those hosts, all right? And that's how I came across Portainer. But one of the things that most people don't know about Portainer is that it's actually an industrial tool. So Portainer wasn't really developed for the homebrew hacker. It was developed for industry. And so there's all these tools inside of Portainer. They're called the edge tools, that in the old days, you actually had to turn them on. Like, they weren't on by default. Most people didn't even know they were there. So being able to create templates that you would deploy into edge devices, that stuff wasn't on by default. Okay. So there's a whole host of like enterprise class features inside of Portainer to help you manage infrastructure that most people don't know about. All right. All right. So we're all done updating our environment. All right. So I've done my update. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that my prereqs are in here for installing Docker. All right. And everything should be in there. Looks like everything was in there. All right. We're going to go ahead and add the GPG key for Docker. Got my script running here. All right. Then we'll go ahead and add the Docker repository. And then we will go ahead and install Docker. And then the last thing we'll do when it's all done, we'll just verify everything's running. All right. And there's nothing running there. Okay, so we've got Docker running. We got Docker Compose running. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my Portainer instance. So remember, I'm in my web browser here on this Portainer instance. And what I want to do is I want to add this as a host. Okay, I want to add this environment as a host. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Add Environment, and I'm going to do Docker standalone. Sorry, it's 11 o'clock at night. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab the command that's going to allow me to it's going to put the Portainer agent running on this device. Okay. Didn't need sudo because I think I'm in as root. I got to grab the IP address right here. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give it a name, and we're going to call it, we'll call it Portainer stack. So that's going to be the name of the host. We'll go ahead and put the IP address in here with port 9001, and we're going to go ahead and connect. And so now if I go back to my environments, I should have my Portainer stack host here, okay? And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Portainer stack, and I have one container running, which is the Portainer agent, all right? And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into stacks, and I'm going to create a new stack. And this new stack, we will call my Portainer, or we'll call it my development stack. All right. And now I'm going to show you all the stuff that I'll go ahead and drop the YAML file in there first. All right. So I'm going to use the web editor. I'm going to go ahead and drop in my compose file, and I'll walk through everything. All right. So first and foremost, I install Postgres. Okay. It's going to expose port 5432. I install pgadmin so I can manage Postgres. Okay. And it's going to map port 5050 to port 80, the web server. I install Ignition. Okay. And I use an environment variable that puts in my Ignition password. Okay. I install the Timebase historian. I install the Timebase Explorer. This is my historian. And I install the Timebase MQTT collector. Okay. There's a simulator running in there. I install Node-RED. I install the HiveMQ Edge MQTT broker. I install Glances so I can monitor the host. I install the Hemdall dashboard so that I can add in shortcuts to each of these services. I install Fail to Ban so that way if people are, I got hackers pinging the server, it'll nuke them. And then I install Uptime Kuma. Okay. All right. So with that, I'll come here. I'm going to go and I'm going to load my environment variables from a stack.env. It's going to create all my environment variables. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and let me make sure, did I give it a good name? And then we'll go ahead and deploy. It's going to take a minute because the Ignition image is like 1.9 gig. It's a fast machine up there. So right now what it's doing is it's downloading all the images and then it's running through the compose file and it is installing everything the way that I have configured it in the compose file. All right. And all those passwords there aren't ones I use, so you're pretty good. And we won't have to use most of these anyways. We're just going to fly right through them. And maybe right here, I'll take a moment. The business edition version of this is so worth it. It is so worth it. You can use the community edition, which is free, and you might get 3 nodes. You might get 3 hosts. I think that's what they're doing now. I think it used to be 1, but now you get 3. And it's the business edition is absolutely worth it. I mean, you can manage hundreds of hosts and thousands of containers using Portainer. All right, so now my development stack has been deployed. So if I go to my containers, now what I've got is my full environment running. So this is my actual stack. So you wanted to know what I deploy when I set up a new server. This is what I deploy. So the first thing I'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at Glances. Actually, it's starting up. Actually, that's not true. What we're going to do is we are going to go to our environments, and we're going to go to Portainer stack, and we're going to put the public IP in there. Oop. And we will grab our public IP right here. This will do the redirection, because remember, this is actually running. This is actually running on my local machine. We're out here. We're not inside there. Okay. All right, so if I go to Glances and I just hit the port, it's going to open Glances. If you don't use Glances, this is a great way. This is actually monitoring the host itself. So we're looking at the host right now, and it's just showing me the health of the host. We're going to use Hemdall, which is, this is a, gives me the ability to add shortcuts to any of these applications. So I would use, I basically create a dashboard that maps me to all of these various services. Okay. HiveMQ Edge. So this is, if you don't use HiveMQ Edge, this is HiveMQ's like, free edge broker that's containerized. Very, very powerful. I absolutely love HiveMQ Edge. I used to use EMQX in this stack, and I replaced it with HiveMQ Edge. If you're not using it, you should be using it. It's basically the old. It's the new HiveMQ, but it's got all the features of the old HiveMQ, and now it's in a free edge offering. We got Ignition. I'll go and agree. We'll start the gateway. We'll come back to it. We've got Node-RED. I don't want to enable. Now, one of the things that I do is I actually use a pre-configured stack, so things are connected together, and I have stuff running, services and stuff running, but I'm just showing you the raw stack. So there we go. Now we've got Ignition. I've got pgadmin running, so this allows me to manage my Postgres database. Okay. I've got the Postgres database running itself. I've got my Timebase historian. Okay. I have no data sets running, but what I'll do is I'll run to my collector over here. And I will go in here and change this to Timebase historian. Okay. The reason I'm doing that is because Timebase historian is the name of the historian. It's the host name of the historian. So what I'm doing is I'm just updating the collector so that when I go and I grab the simulator for the juice factory and I start the simulator, my juice factory is running. And when I go to my historian and I go to data sets, yep, there we go. My juice factory should be there. Okay. When I go to Timebase Explorer, I did not update there's a little config file I got to update and point it to Timebase Historian, but I would be able to trend the juice factory right here, and I would just change that configuration. And then last but not least, Uptime Kuma. So Uptime Kuma is a tool that allows me to Uptime Kuma gives me the ability to create monitoring tools, so I can monitor an MQTT broker. I can monitor the Postgres database. It allows me to monitor services and notify, excuse me, when they go down. And that, my friends, is my development stack. That is every single time I spin up a new server, that is what I deploy without exception, in order, exactly the way I do it every single time, and it takes whatever 8 minutes. I can actually run it as I could run it as a bash script if I wanted to, but I go through the process of doing it as a compose file. I actually have my stack configured as a template, which I'll show how to do that in another video later. But basically, I can go to my stack and I can turn my stack into a template, and then that is a template that I can deploy into my entire environment. So like right here inside of, I've talked about this quite a bit, but like, you can deploy Ignition from inside Portainer. You got EMQX in here, Grafana. Everybody asks me why I don't put Grafana in. Grafana is great with data from databases, not so great from, I'm not even showing my screen. So here are the templates. All right. So with that, my friends, is my Portainer stack, and that's how I deploy it. If you got any questions about it, comment down below, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.